The biggest thing that you can do to help you when you start out your home purchase is to get pre-approved. Yes. If you are not a cash buyer, you need to be pre-approved. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching our podcast. I cannot believe we're actually on episode number 3 today. So I'm back with Ashley, and we are actually going to dive in today talking about tips and tricks for sellers and buyers. So stay tuned. Ashley, thank you so much for being here today again. I'm so happy to have you. It's been so much fun, and I can't believe, like I just said, we're on number 3 already.
That's crazy.
I know. So before we jump in, I'm going to hand the mic over to you and let you take the lead on this interview today.
Okay, let's do it. Having purchased and sold with you, I can truly say you are just the creme de la creme.
Thank you.
Because I have experience working with you, I know that if someone is listening today that's a buyer or a seller, that Diana will take amazing care of you. And I just think that it'd be great to ask you some really amazing questions for buyers and sellers so that they can tune in to some of the detail that goes on in those processes, and hopefully they can learn something today.
Thank you so much, Ashley. I appreciate those kind words. So with that, let's go ahead and jump in.
Okay, so I just figured that a lot of people are in the market to buy or sell.
Yes.
So I just think that in listening to this podcast, it'd be great if they could leave with some awesome kind of info from you that will help them to get started and feel more comfortable and feel like they're headed the right direction.
Absolutely.
So let's start with people who are interested in buying.
Okay.
Which is so fun.
Yes.
And I think, honestly, there's fears for people that are going into buying. Always. So I thought maybe we could talk about that a little bit and see if you can help address some of their current fears.
Sure.
And I think on the Space Coast, it really comes down to, wow, the market prices have changed so much.
Yes.
And the interest rates have changed so much.
Yes.
So I would love if we can kind of address that for the buyers out there that are listening.
Absolutely.
And then I have some really specific questions too about helping them feel comfortable with the buying process. So maybe we start with the fears.
Shoot. Okay. So I would say, let me ask you, do you have any specific questions about fears or just how to even get started? And
well, I know I've talked to some people who think that the pricing on the houses around here is going to drop eventually. So they're like in this waiting game when I really don't think that's true. So I'm curious your thoughts. I know you don't have all the answers because no one really knows what the market's going to do.
Correct.
But in general, when you're guiding your buyers, what would you say?
So right now, I have some really sweet buyers I'm working with right now. And, I think the biggest thing that you can do to help you when you start out your home purchase is to get pre-approved. Yes. If you are not a cash buyer, you need to be pre-approved. That way, your purchase power, what your monthly payments are going to be. We can factor in all sorts of things.
Yeah.
So having that on hand to know what you can go and look at, is so helpful. Yeah. And then that way, too, you're not walking into a home that's double what you can actually afford, falling in love with that, and then being disappointed, per se.
That's very disappointing.
Yeah. And so I think that's the biggest thing that I love, to share with buyers first is to get pre-approved. And when they do that, when they have that on hand, it's so much easier from the start. So I absolutely love that. Again, I think working with a local lender, I will say that all day is so key. That way they know our local market, and it's super helpful because they have so many products out right now. I got a phone call earlier today about a new product, that people are putting out and stuff right now too. So there are so many things and so many helpful products out right now, guys, that, your local lenders have. So local.
Yeah, and that's so helpful because you're in the industry, so you're hearing about them. I know most people would just be like, well, is there anything for me to get a better deal?
Yes.
So it's really nice that you're educated and work on staying up to date.
Yes, and honestly, I feel like there's so many things that are evolving and changing so quickly that sometimes I can't even keep up with everything. So that's why I always say, I like to be best friends with who I'm working with, with each deal and everything too. So we know the ins and outs. We know the situation for our buyers, and we know how to best educate them. We know how to best help them, with all of the things. So I absolutely love, working with amazing lenders. So.
And would you be okay if people reached out and said, hey, I would love to work with you. I need to get pre-approved. Can you tell me who you're using for your lender?
Yes, okay. Thank you for asking that. So yes. I absolutely have, I think we have so many amazing lenders, locally. There's a slew that I've worked with that I've had the pleasure of working with.
Yeah.
And, each of them, each person I think is great for different clients. I know that I'm not necessarily a one size fits all for everyone who's buying and or selling. same with, mortgage companies, everything too. So I do think that, finding someone that you're comfortable with, people want to work with people who they know, like, and trust.
Yeah.
And so I think that that is such a big key. So as soon as you click with somebody, whether it be, your lender, an agent, or an interior designer, I definitely think that you have to be comfortable in this process, because it's not just okay, I'm going to go pick out a house on Zillow, and then, and then go from there, and then that's the house I'm going to get. So there's so many steps from start to finish, and it's a very intimate process too, and it's a big purchase.
It is, yeah.
It can be stressful. It can also be really fun, and I love honing on the fun part of it and stuff too, and I love being able to daydream with my clients about how, they're going to transform the place, or if they're moving into like their forever home. I love to see, what they do with the space afterwards and everything too. So.
And I think you are very good at everything that you just said.
Thank you.
Having sold and purchased with you.
Thank you.
I remember a lot of details that came up that were kind of alarming. They were not stereotypical details in the transactions. In the buying and the selling, to be honest. And I remember you just walking us through each step of the way and just feeling so confident and setting us at ease. I think that's a huge part of being a great agent is the personability. Is that a word?
Sure.
Personability. Walking through that journey together and knowing that you care and that you're a part of it and that you're not going to leave your clients high and dry when things get hard, because a lot of hard things come up with houses.
Absolutely.
My next question about buying is basically about expectations. People want this perfect home. And I think when anyone's moving, they do start to daydream. I know you just said that word. They start to daydream about like their new house and how it's going to feel and how it's going to improve their life and their lifestyle. And yet, when you get out and you start looking at homes, you start seeing things need repaired, or you're going to have this. And so when you're out shopping with your buyers, do you find that there's unrealistic expectations often in the home?
That's a great question. So a term that I keep hearing a lot is that people want a unicorn. So... yes.
That's a good word for it.
I know.
No problems, perfect price, maybe even a deal.
Yeah, perfect location, pool, newer, everything. Yeah. So I feel like, yes, you can find a unicorn. You might be looking for a while.
There's probably even pink flowers growing right beside the door.
Yes. But when it comes to that, if we're not finding exactly what we want and you're in a time crunch, if you don't have all the time in the world, to sit and wait, then it is good to have like your top, I'd say 3 to 5 things. Is it going to be your location? Is it going to be price point? Is it going to be square footage? Do you need a pool? Do you not need a pool? Do you need room for a pool? So there are certain things that I like to, try and manage with that. So again, what I always like to offer is like, hey, let's find you, your top 3 things. And then I like to bring in, someone who is an expert who can help you envision, what your space could look like.
Yeah.
So, and just like, you can see a property that's been virtually staged, you can also bring in a designer that's going to be like, okay, this is what we can do with your pieces here. This is what we can do with your pieces there. And then really help you feel at home in your new space. Because, I can daydream and I know what I like in a magazine, but putting it together myself, not necessarily. So that's why I like to call you and ask about X, Y, and Z.
And even when I do furniture layout for spaces, I know exactly the scale is right. I know the colors are right. I know everything's working for what we're about to do. Once it starts going in, you're like, man, you can't even imagine how a space can come together with stuff.
Yes.
I always say that. Look at the difference here with stuff.
1,000%.
So, it makes a big difference just walking through an empty home that's been virtually staged, or even a home without your stuff in it, with someone else's stuff, and to really kind of know what it's going to feel like. And I think seeing that potential is a huge part of buying the right house.
Agreed. Very much so.
That's so
great question. Thank you.
Thank you. So I almost feel like, would it be neat for a buyer prior to really being ready to contact their agent of choice or a few agents of choice, interview them, and then use their lender and start talking about what they want? And or do you think it's better just to start all at once, right as soon as they're ready to buy?
I think it's great to really, again, I think getting comfortable, with who you're going to use, what your time frame is. Like, are you going to be needing, nights and weekends? Are you going to be needing during the day?
Yeah.
Kind of I mean, that's a great question. Setting expectations ahead of time, what you're looking for, and, you know, who you want to be in the process with, I think, you know, for 30, 60, 90 days is really key too. Yeah. So I think, yes, you know, I know that most of our agents around here have, you know, their preferred vendors and everything, and whether it be inspectors, lenders, you know, all of that. But being able to, I mean, yes, you can interview, you know, different agents and stuff to see who you click with if you don't have one already. You can interview different lenders. You know, that's never going to hurt. You can interview different, you know, inspectors, get quotes and stuff, you know, appraisers, all that kind of stuff too. So
lots of prep work to do it right and to do it well, and
you can
to feel ahead of the game.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
So,
good tips.
Yes, great question. Thank you very much for that.
So obviously there's lots of buyers here in Brevard, but there's also tons of sellers.
Yes.
And I know you represent both at different times, and I'm sure that the challenges and the joys, they're different from...
Yes.
Okay, so for sellers, the list price is a really, really big part of that equation.
Correct.
So teach me and our listeners a little bit about how you come up with that list price.
Great question. So what we like to say, and what I learned so much from, you know, CK and Compass, is that there are three major things. You know, if your home is not selling, it's going to be because it's not marketed well, it's not priced right, and it's not in the best condition. Okay. So we do amazing marketing. I think our marketing team is spot on, and I'm so thankful for that. So check on that, right? So if your home is in a great condition, when we sold your house, you could have eaten off the floor. It was so clean and so on it, and it sold, I think, within 2 days. So there was that, you know, so check again there. So, but price point, you know, if your home is sitting and it's beautiful and it's photographed and it's marketed and it's not selling, it's most likely going to be that price.
Yeah.
So when we go into pricing, you know, if you're not going to do appraisal ahead of time to really know what it's worth, then we like to do comps. So I will show you what has sold around you in the past, you know, X amount of days, what's currently on the market. And the other thing too is that, you know, if you say, hey, I've got $400,000, $500,000, whatever price point it is to buy a home, or you want to list your home in that price range, right? I will show you what else that people can buy with that kind of money, right? So, and how does that compare to yours?
Right.
So yes, so I like to provide all the things, you know, that we can, all the comps, all of the, so comparables, you know, all of the things that are around and available. But pricing is so key.
It is.
So, and, you know, I mean, we're still seeing, you know, multiple offer situations. We are still seeing, you know, people get backup offers, multiple backup offers.
That's so good.
I know, which is incredible, right?
Yeah.
And then, yes, there are some things that sit a little bit longer because it takes a minute to find the right buyer and everything for your seller. But at the same time, you know, pricing, getting it in the best condition possible, and then marketing it very well is the best way to go.
Do you feel like getting the appraisal ahead of time is a benefit to a seller?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I think that way, you know, your sellers are not caught off guard, like, oh, well, especially because not everyone has, you know, X amount cash to just go buy a house. Yeah. I'm a person not there yet. But at the same time, you know, so with that, you're going to have an appraisal. If someone's going to get a loan for a house, unless they're waiving the appraisal, which I'm not seeing a whole lot right now.
Interesting.
Like we were a couple of years ago, people were waiving appraisals and just paying X amount over, right? Making up that gap in cash. You know, if people aren't going to waive that, then you're going to have to get an appraisal, you know, per your lender, right? So I like my people to not be caught off guard. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're so overpriced, or we weren't prepared for this, you know, to come back like this. So I think it's smart to do. I think each situation's different. I don't necessarily think it's needed for everything, but in certain situations,
generally speaking,
yes, I think that it would be super handy to have on deck for you, and that way you're prepared. You know, getting a 4-point ahead of time too. I love being able to do that, so that way nothing comes up on the inspection. That's like, oh my goodness, the new people aren't going to be able to get, you know, insurance. So I think that there's so many key things to do when listing a home that go on behind the scenes that like people don't necessarily think of. That have been super helpful.
Yeah. Another reason why you need a great agent.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. Just someone who's thinking for you, because you're the one in the industry that is taking care of the biggest asset in someone's life. It's a really big job.
It's a very big job.
It's not something to take lightly at
all.
It
is not. And it's not something I do take lightly, whether it's, you know, a $350,000 home or if it's a $2 million home. you're going to get the same treatment. So, and we want you to be prepared. We want you to be happy, and we want you to feel comfortable along the way. So, yes.
So good. Okay. So this is my next question, and this is hopefully helpful for sellers listening.
Okay.
Furnishings. Yes. Sometimes furnishings are very specific to a home. They work with that aesthetic. They've been purchased, sometimes custom furniture.
Yes.
So I have just being around clients here on the Space Coast, I've heard of this very often where they're like, hey, we're probably going to sell the furnishings with our house. And I've always been curious, and I'm sure others are too, about how that plays into the sale. Is it helpful? Do you find that people are liking that? I know a lot of people move down here from like the northern states. Are they looking for something fully furnished? So I'm sure there's a lot in that question, but if you could speak into it a little bit, I'm sure it'd be helpful.
Sure. No, that's a great question. So I've got some sweet clients right now who are under contract. So we walked into this home and they loved everything about it, right?
Aww.
All the way down to the artwork. So they're like, we want it furnished. Like we don't, this furniture just fits the space. Like everything is just so homey. We're just going to come bring our toothbrushes, our personal items, and then call it a day.
Sounds great.
I know, right? Yes. Wouldn't we just love doing that?
Yeah.
So I think that it can definitely play in, especially if it's staged and done really well.
Yeah.
You want that. That's why you're buying the home. It's, that's why people stage homes too, because, we want you to see what it could feel like and what it could be like when you
Definitely.
make it your own. And then there's other times where like, oh yeah, I don't want anything that, this person has because it's not their taste, and that's okay too.
Yes.
So we can, we can manage both. It's funny enough, I am seeing more and more where people will leave, their home furniture and they want to sell it furnished and everything too. So
that's awesome.
Yes.
And are buyers willing to just make an outside deal for the furnishings, or is it built into the price, or how does that work?
That's a great question. So I would say most of the time we're seeing that if it's not a cash deal, it's basically just all separate.
Okay.
Most of the time it's going to be separate anyways, but when it's cash, it's just,
because the bank doesn't want to mortgage.
No, they don't. No, they don't.
Right.
So yes, so I am seeing it more and more. And, working with designers like yourself, like who have just done such a beautiful job with spaces, really unique, features and everything. Like people walk in and they want that. They want the whole package. So yeah, and we actually have a really exciting project coming up soon too, with this situation as well. But yes, furnishings can really make a home feel even more like you're, more inviting, and just really kind of seal the deal for it too.
Yes.
So.
Okay, for sellers, do you ever give them small tips like, hey, people are going to be coming through your home. Sensory items are a really big deal for people's immediate response to a house. Smells, visual cleanliness walking in, maybe seeing the surfaces, seeing all the materials that exist in the home. So is that something that you kind of talk to your clients about, or is it just me that thinks about these small details?
1,000%. So that's a great, and I'm so glad you bring this up too. So another thing I offer my sellers is that we will do a big deep cleaning before we do photos and go live.
Oh,
yes. So I'm talking blinds, baseboards, countertops, all the things, right?
I want your junk away.
Yes, that too. I want the home to just smell clean and fresh. I don't want it to smell like animals. I love pets, but sometimes there's allergies. Sometimes people are just very sensitive. So I don't want that to be a distraction for people when they walk in.
I couldn't agree more.
I did show a property to some sweet buyers where the homeowner actually had freshly baked cookies and had a little note that says, please take one. And that, I think, was the icing on the cake for that house. So we got under contract for that. But just little touches, making sure that your home just smells and looks and feels clean.
Definitely.
Goes so far.
Yeah.
So that is something that I also do, when, prior to listing a home and prior to going live, is doing a big deep cleaning and helping to kind of declutter, which we've talked about before, taking away any extra personal items as well. So
and same, if people aren't ready to design their home, if they can keep it clean and smelling good, you're winning.
Yes, 1,000%. Yes,
yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
Oh, love it. That was really helpful.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for the questions today. I appreciate it.
You're an awesome agent, and
thank you.
Certainly can be trusted with people looking to buy or sell, and just to handle them every step of the way with joy, confidence, really amazing knowledge and experience. So
thank you very much. That means a lot coming from you.
You rock.
Thank you.